Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from beautiful Cartagena, Colombia. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to beautiful Cartagena. And we are here.
Is it Cartagena? Is it ya? Cartagena?
What is it?
I don't think
Cartagena.
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 I was
yeah.
adding things to this beautiful city. It needs nothing else. I've never been here. I know Parmananda has.
No, you have.
It's incredibly, we didn't go. Kaustubha was like, "What are you doing? Crazy going to the beach?" Me and Bunky and Anu Lawrence. That's Drew Lawrence's son. We joke that that's his only identity is Drew Lawrence's son, one of our favorite astrologers, and who's a guest on the show. And Kelly Skinner, the Bright Light of Vermont, and Mara. We took off and we went to San Marta. A little underwhelming, but nice. And then we took a lousy drive. It was one of those days, Kaustubha, where we left you and we were like, this would never happen to Kaustubha. This would never happen to Kaustubha. This situation would never happen to Kaustubha.
What happened?
It was just little things that were not planned. And I'm going to blame everybody else but myself. But Kaustubha the whole time was saying, you should just go straight to Cartagena. It's going to be good. But we ended up in this incredible beach house in the middle of nowhere in Baru, Colombia. And this was our detox, and it was just Bunky, me, Kelly, and Mara. And it was so nice. We did nothing but hear and chant, swimming like the Caribbean.
Nice.
And we did a fruit fast the entire time. And we broke down, of course, at times. We were like, why did I just have fruit here? I broke down a little bit.
Okay.
Kelly was all nervous. She was like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm going to bring some granola just in case. She did fine. We were all totally happy. He was like, what did I do?
What have I done? You were like, we have a chef that will make you whatever you want. He charges practically nothing. We're like, no, we're fine. We're just drinking coconuts.
I'm going to take Geeta Priya. Monday's Geeta Priya's birthday. I'm going to take her there to that island for her birthday.
Ooh. Yeah, you'll love
nice,
it.
right?
Happy birthday, Geeta Priya. And so anyway, then we got to Cartagena yesterday. And you've been bragging to me, Kaustubha, like, I got this place, a beautiful place.
Hold it, slow down. I haven't been bragging, but
You're just saying very enthusiastically.
It's a nice place.
You got a place in the walled city. So we're like, man, we got to get a place in the walled city. So we get this place in the walled city. And Kaustubha says, why don't you come over here and do the podcast? And then we find out you're not even in the walled city. I was like, wait a second.
I am in the walled city.
And you're like, well, it's like pretty close to the wall. I was like, that's not the walled city.
Are you sure I'm not in the walled city?
Your place is beautiful, but it's just not in the damn wall.
I think it may be.
You can see the wall.
Okay.
That doesn't
I haven't
count
seen
as
any
the-
walls, so I don't know if that means I'm inside it or outside it. But
You're outside it.
okay.
I've Google mapped it. But it's Q&A day, everybody. If you're listening for the first time on Facebook, this is our study of the Vedic literatures, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam. So far, it's been only the Srimad Bhagavatam, but we dive into other literature as well, especially the Gita. Gita is the metric for spiritual thought of India, right? It's like the gold standard. And we basically break down the philosophy. But who was I just hearing this from? I can't remember. But the idea is that it's not just interesting information. It makes will make no practical sense as information. It'll make sense as information. It just won't come alive. This stuff that we're talking about only comes alive when you apply it. And to the degree that you apply it, your life transforms. That's the power of the spiritual teachings of India, or just wisdom literature in general. When you read it, it resonates with something deep inside of you. But when you apply it, it revolutionizes your life. And that's the power. So we study wisdom literature every day. And if you want to join us every day, Facebook people, you can do it. Go wherever you get podcasts and look up Wisdom of the Sages. And also you can join us live here. Like we have a whole live group here. We generally see their beautiful faces, but today we had to turn off their cameras for a weak internet connection. And, but we can, we see each other live. You get the Zoom link from Mara, our assistant, Mara, our executive producer. Yes, I just demoted her and remoted her. And now she's our executive producer. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. Write us, and you can also write us there for today's theme, which is questions. People write in their questions, and we try our best to give answers. Thanks, everybody. Welcome.
Speaking of doing
announcements, Mara?
Yeah, speaking of doing Bhagavatam every day, there won't be a show tomorrow or Monday.
Speaking of not doing it every day.
Also, we have a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting still today and tomorrow at 9:30. And tomorrow at the Bhakti Recovery Group, Sarah Koretsky, our newlywed Zoomer, is giving a class on nonviolent communication, and it's open to everyone who wants to join. They don't have to be a part of the Bhakti Recovery Group.
Okay. So
no show
for
the
the
Zoomers
next 2
in the
days.
house. Yeah, no shows the next 2 days.
All right.
Any
Back
other interesting
on
information?
Tuesday.
Back on Tuesday at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
5 a.m.?
6
Five.
a.m.
6 a.m.?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's do some questions, brother.
All right.
All right. I'm going to read this. Dear Kaustubha and Raghu. Yeah, this is one for you, Kaustubha. This is from a good old friend called Rameshwar Das. That's a good name.
Last week we did one from Bhaktivatsal, and Rameshwar is Bhaktivatsal's brother.
Oh. Isn't it interesting when brothers and sisters become devotees?
It's like Gita Priya's.
It's like Gita Priya's whole damn family is spiritual.
Not
right?
Well, not the whole family.
Who's not spiritual in their family?
They're all spiritual. Well, she's got 2 brothers who are like Krishna devotees. She's got a sister.
By the way, Gita Priya is Kaustubha's wife. Gita Priya's brother is a sannyasi, a swami.
One of them, yes.
One of them.
She's got another sister who's into Eastern philosophy and spirituality, and then they have an older brother who's like he's not into anyway. He's still a wonderful person.
Likes the Grateful Dead. Does that count as spiritual? Yes.
I say
yes.
The Grateful Dead. Okay. And then we get into this
question. Jamuna Jaya, her other brother. Anyway, so this is a brother of a devotee. It's so weird. My brothers would never become devotees. Maybe ever. Dear Kaustubha and Raghu, thanks again for your wonderful efforts to bring the Bhagavatam to global audience in an accessible and digestible manner. Since first taking up the chanting in 1988, that's when I did it too, I've seen a lot of developments in the Bhakti community worldwide. The particular brand and flavor of ashram life I experienced in the 90s was akin to joining the military in some ways. Yep.
That was in Germany too, especially like that.
It was a little bit more militaristic in Germany too. Yeah. Although it was a lot more ecstatic. It was military. Here's his point. It was militaristic, but more ecstatic. But eventually, along with developing circumstances, I began to feel disappointed with the rigidity and the inflexibility of the Bhakti society. It seemed kind of stuck and forever embroiled in petty disputes, fragmenting into nitpicky splinters. I really love this question already. Nitpicky? With an I more stricto spiritual than thou egotism. Listening to Wisdom of the Sages has been so refreshing, super encouraging to hear a more broad-minded and progressive presentation of Bhakti tradition. Just like a Mahatma, a great soul, should be, all embracing, all inclusive, all loving, and delivered with humility, humor, and heart. So thank you.
Sweet.
That was sweet.
Thank you.
And very
Ramesh.
eloquent, right? I hope this question creates an interesting discussion. Recently, we heard about Sati leaving her body in the protest of her father's despicable behavior. I thought they were talking about Sati the dog. We've been hanging out with a dog named Sati for a month. I was like, Sati left his body? I should have been nicer to that dog.
Her body.
Her body, okay. Was Sati in Maya? The story seems to demonstrate that she was not in pure transcendental consciousness. She was so horrified and disgusted by her father's behavior that she couldn't stand being in the body derived from his. Not exactly Dira or sober. Yet in the ultimate issue, this is merely a bodily relation. And on the spiritual platform, his behavior has nothing to do with her. Surely she could see that it seems strange that Sati would be in Maya when she is in charge of the material, energy. Maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way, so I'm interested to know what other angles come into play. Does that mean she's in charge of material energy because she is an expansion of the Durga, the goddess, the wife of Lord Shiva? Is that what they meant by that?
Yes.
Okay. Right, that's Sati's position. After all, suicide is normally However, if she was in Maya, did she get any negative reactions for killing herself? After all, suicide is normally considered just as bad as murder karmically. But in this case, we don't hear any negative comments about the strong reaction. Interested in hearing your thoughts. Kaustubha, we're going to give this
That's
to
a
Kaustubha.
tough question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Pretty tough. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rameshwar Prabhu. So let's just fill people in just in case they're not aware of everything. Some people just tune in just for the Q&As and they don't listen during the week. You know that, right?
Yes. So why don't
Have
you
you
do
heard
what
about
you
that?
do best, brother? Rewind. Rewinder. You're the rewinder, Kaustubha.
So the story goes, and we've been reading it for the past few weeks during the weekdays, that Shiva has a wife named Sati. Her father's named Daksha. Daksha was not fond of Shiva. He had this kind of uptight, quote-unquote, religious superiority complex or something like that. And long story short, Sati, the wife of Lord Shiva, attends a big event at her father's home, Daksha's home, and where he receives her very coldly. She begins to openly and publicly express her disapproval and disgust with her father's very shallow and, quite frankly, offensive outlook and behavior towards Lord Shiva. And she expresses right there, what a shocking scene it must have been, right? She says, because I'm your daughter, my body is coming from you. I don't want to be in this body anymore. And she sits down and she goes into, she was a yogi, or yogini. And she had the power. Some yogis can do this where they can kind of just internally through a yogic process, light themselves up. And she just left her body in that way. So what the question is this, and it's an interesting question. She's this very influential, she's the wife of Lord Shiva. And not only is she the wife of Lord Shiva, but, it's described how these expansions come. There's different, what we call tattvas, different categories of existence. Like one of them is called Vishnu tattva. Vishnu tattva means that's Krishna himself. It's God, like full on, right? And then we are called Jiva tattva. It means that we are an individual. We're not God. We're the energy of God. We're made of God's energy. We have the similar qualities of God. We don't have the power of God. And then there's different, like Radharani, she's called Shakti tattva, right? And the different goddesses extend from her. Now, it's said that Shiva tattva is very difficult to understand. He's a category of his own. Imagine that, Raghunath. It's just like one person.
Yeah.
He's
He's
got his own
important.
category.
He's important and gets his own category.
Yeah, and it's said that understanding the nature of Lord Shiva, it's difficult for us to wrap our heads around. We have to remember sometimes that we're just like these little ants. We have a very limited realm of experience, and in the state of consciousness that we're in right now, sometimes if we're going to approach this the right way, we can't demand that everything be explained to us in a way that we can fully comprehend it. We have to accept that I can only comprehend this so far. And it's said that understanding Lord Shiva is very difficult to understand, that he is Vishnu, he is God, but he's a slightly transformed form of God. Just like when you take milk and you put in just a little bit of the yogurt starter, it's like some form of bacteria, that it transforms milk into yogurt. Basically, it is milk, but it's in a new form now.
It's a totally different
And
food.
It's the same but different.
But it's the
right?
same.
So like,
Who can
but it's the
understand
same.
that?
It's difficult to understand. And so when we have tremendous respect for Lord Shiva, we don't respect him as if he is the source of all existence, but he's a transformed kind of form of God, very subtle. And in the same way that Krishna expands into Shiva, Radha expands into the different goddesses, including Sati. Sati, when she takes her own life here, she'll come back as Parvati and marry Shiva again, right? And so whether we're saying Parvati, Durga, Kali, Sati, these are all manifestations of the same being. Okay, and it's said that Durga, so we're talking about the same person here, that the entire material realm is called Devi Dham. It's called the realm of Durga, whereas like the entire spiritual world is the realm of Lord Vishnu. That realm, the spiritual realm, there's no time, and the threefold miseries are not inflicted on beings in that realm. But this realm, Devi Dham, the realm that we're in, it's the duty of Durga to apply elements like time and the threefold. She carries this trident. It has 3 points on it that represent the 3 different types of miseries that we experience in this world. I don't want to go too far off subject and get into all that. So how is that? It would seem like that person has an extremely important responsibility. Like they're responsible for the experience, and that let's say, quite frankly, it's called a prison, right? Like she's responsible for the prison house of the entire material world, that every living being is getting their experience in such a way that it's meant to hopefully elevate them. It's a huge responsibility. But here we see she seems to be acting and behaving almost like a regular bewildered person. How do we make sense of that, right? She could have just said to her father, I don't appreciate that you have these things to say about my husband, and I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, and I'm going to be leaving your party now, right? And she could have just went back. But there was something in her that was so disturbed by this that she did what she did. So, which again was like, in a sense, committing suicide, although in this very special yogic way. Now, I guess the first thing that I would say to address this question is that these beings, we can't necessarily, we are wise not to try to judge their behavior on a human level, right? Because she is someone, she's a being that we can't even wrap our heads around. And her behavior, even though it may seem very human, we should understand that she's even a completely different category of being. So that's there. And, Prabhupada would often say things like, like it's said that certain behavior by Lord Shiva, people copy it, right? Whether it's the way they dress, or they say he smokes ganja, so they're smoking ganja. And Prabhupada said, so if Shiva does it, why can't we? And Prabhupada said, well, Shiva also drank an ocean of poison. Can you drink the ocean of, can you drink any, once you can do that, then you can, do everything else that he does. So I would say that's a sober way to approach this. The behavior of Sati, we can't exactly call it human. It's really happening on a different level. Now that's just one statement. Another way to look at this is, what was she objecting to? She was objecting to a pure devotee, right? Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. She was objecting to someone who's very dear to God being just criticized and misunderstood completely, and it infuriated her. That kind of anger is not ordinary anger, right? That kind of anger is an anger that is like experienced in a state of truth rather than a state of illusion. Usually our anger is stimulated by ourselves, our own illusory conception of ourselves being somehow disrespected or interfered with, or our own materialistic desires somehow not being fulfilled. This was a very different type of anger that she displayed. She was angry because a pure devotee was not being respected, and she just couldn't take it. So that's a different kind of anger. So is it Rameshwar Prabhu was saying, that's not dhira, that's not like a peaceful mind. But in that case, perhaps it was very justified for her not to have a peaceful mind, but to express anger. And you know what? We don't even witness the whole thing happening. Like, she may have been very calm as she was saying this. She may have been very, although it did say she had fiery eyes, so I would assume it was more emotional. But the other thing is, her suicide is not like an ordinary suicide. For her, it seems like she knew very well, I'm going to come back I'm going to remain as the wife of Lord Shiva, and I'm just going to leave this body and do it in another body. So with her own yogic prowess, she was able to light her own body up, and she was able to take birth again and again become the wife of Lord Shiva. So we're not capable of doing these things. We're not capable of choosing where we go in our next life. We're not capable of lighting our own body up by yogic prowess. She's a very different being. And so we just respect her like that, and I guess that would be my ultimate answer is we can't impose human values on people that are living in other realms. It's almost like you can't impose adult standards on children, you can't expect people that are living in very different realms to be playing by all the same rules. There's that one. Can you think of an example in Mahabharata like that, Raghu?
You can't. What? Bunky's man.
Wow, Bunky, you're so
Yeah,
fast.
Bunky.
Say it quick,
What's
Bunky.
he got?
When Arjuna was petitioned by that woman who has sex with him, she's like,
Oh yeah. When Urvasi asked Arjuna to have sex, and Arjuna said, "Well,
That was what I was
not.
thinking.
I was looking of you as my mother because you were married to one of my ancestors." And she says, "We don't apply those rules here. We can have sex with
Yeah.
everybody. It's heaven."
That wasn't exactly. It was slow down, Raghu. But yeah, what happened was.
Welcome to heaven. We do this all the time.
I think you may be imposing human things on the, but yeah, Arjuna went to the heavens, to the planet of Lord Indra, Indraloka, and there he met Urvasi, the famous,
Breathtaking
damsel of the heavens, breathtaking damsel of the heavens, and she approached him romantically, and he was like, "No, I see you as my mother, because Indra was his father, and Indra had had romantic relationships with Urvasi." And she said, "No, but those are the rules that apply in the material realm. Everything's hard here, right? We want to enjoy materially, we want to enjoy sexually, and there's so many complications. But they're like, here, it's far less complicated. It's not like that here. It's a whole different setup here."
We just read
And
that state. Go on.
And so Arjuna responded by saying, "That may be, but I can't see it any other way. I have to see you as my mother." And so anyway, that was an example of that.
It's
So
a
similarly,
little
I think-
squirrel here. Little squirrel. It's amazing how what we can control is so important. There's a lot of things we can't control, but we were reading the Hitopadesh yesterday while we were on our deserted island, and it said that a man should look at every woman except his wife as his mother. Now, people say, well, that's a little crazy. No. It's training the mind. This woman is a mother. This woman is a mother. Treat a mother with a type of dignity. Now, if you can do that, because a lot of times people say, oh, she's hot. And you're just living in this world of everybody's hot. And what happens is it starts to degrade the consciousness. And every woman that you see becomes a thing for a man's enjoyment. And we're talking about heterosexual men here. So instead of seeing people as a spirit soul, you see them as a commodity for your enjoyment. And if you train the mind, like the Hitopadesh was saying, see them as a mother. This is a mother. This is a mother of a child, a loving mother. This is, or this is maybe someone, if there's younger, as your daughter. This is my daughter. It changes your consciousness. It changes your mind. It changes how you see the world. What a evolved consciousness and what an evolved culture that can rally behind that.
Nice squirrel there, Raghu.
Nice squirrel, huh? It's a lovely squirrel. Thanks, Mara. Malibu Mara. Malibu.
When you say Malibu Mara, are you?
We're having
Mother
a tan
Mara.
contest at this point.
I thought you were doing well.
I was
Malibu
doing
Mother
pretty good.
Mara.
Yeah, she's got the Zoom settings to make her look more tan than me.
Is that what's going on?
And Kelly Skinner is very, she's Celtic goddess of Vermont. She is very, she's your sun kissed?
Yeah, a little rosiness.
A little rosy, yes.
Kaustubha Prabhu, we're having some bandwidth issues and your video is frozen and so people aren't able
Okay,
to.
should I just shut it down then?
Yeah, why don't you shut it down and come join us and you can have my seat.
Ooh.
But the sound is good, so why?
So we can see your smiling face.
Otherwise, they're
Okay,
just
okay.
staring at Raghu.
Okay.
Oh,
coming over,
God
coming over.
forbid they're just staring at Raghu. Whenever I see your smiling face, I have to smile myself. Cause I love you, Kaustubha. Yes, I do. Whenever I see that pretty little pout, it turns me inside out, Kaustubha. Are you coming back? Are you coming back here? Here he is. He had to stop the song. Okay, Prabhu, welcome.
Thank you. All right, I got a question for you now. All right. So here we go. Question. You know where this is coming from, Raghunath? It is coming from Chadaratma Prabhu's Sage Group members.
If you're in Chadaratma's Sage Group, this is a whole long story, but we have Sage Groups. More on that later. But Chadaratma is one of the Sage Group leaders. And it's basically like group spiritual therapy. And he's a great soul. And one of his members of his group
Asks, how important is sangha, even if it's only online sangha? How important is it?
I always get the softball lob pitches. All the tough philosophical ones go to Kaustubha. He's like, okay, can you hit this? Here's a wiffle ball, Raghu.
You want to change up all the questions today? You can take the other ones if you want. I don't mind.
It's all right. I'll take the softball. Okay, it's very sangha. Sangha means to come together. Like even in where there's rivers, that's called the sangam, right? Where the two rivers come together. And so how important is it for like-minded souls to come together and discuss spiritual topics? Super important. Even if it's online. It means for a portion of my day, I'm going to associate with people who are trying to upgrade their life. This is a massive thing. And it cannot be more overspoken. It can't be more understated. It's got to be more overstated.
It can't be overstated.
Here's also what I read in the Hitopadesh yesterday while we were on our tropical island, right? One degrades one consciousness by hanging out with degraded people. This is paraphrased. One keeps neutral consciousness by hanging out with neutral people, and one uplifts, upgrades, raises the bar of their consciousness by hanging out with people who are more evolved. So what we're trying to do is, first of all, we show up on our A game, right? And then the other people in our sangha, our community, lift us up. And me and Kelly were talking about yesterday about like, we got into this whole thing about a cult. And we were reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You would have loved our program. We were reading Chaitanya Charitamrita first thing in the morning. Then we were reading Garga Samhita. Then we were reading, okay, we have to read some Krishna Leela. But I just said, Kelly, I got news for you. You are in a full-on cult. And she's like, well, am I? I was like, yes, you are. I was like, here's the deal about cults. It's part of a culture. And Kelly was a skier. So skiers have their own cult, isn't it? They have this cult, their heroes, the way they dress, the way they act. And then there are heavy metal cults where like, here's the hero and these guys are cool and these guys are not so cool or they're has-beens. And they got their fashion that goes with it and maybe their diet, right? In Straight Edge, we had a diet that went with our cult and we had ethics that went with our cult. Everything's a cult in the material world. The question is your cult lifting you higher or degrading you? And I was telling to Kelly, hey, if this cult is helping you in your life, making you more joyous, connected, etc., then good. You've joined a good cult. We're all going to join some cult, most likely. Even the people who say, well, I'm not part of anything. Well, I feel sad for you because people want community. But the question is, and this is bringing right back to the point here. The question is, we want a community, but there's different grades of community. We want a community that lifts us higher, makes us joyous inside, and the Vedic teachings focus on that. How do you become joyous? What are ways to behave? What are ways to think? How do you relate to people? on a regular basis? How do you relate to your friends? How do you relate to your seniors? How do you relate to your juniors? How do you relate to your family? And this is the ongoing conversation we're having. How do you relate to people from your past that come back into your life? How do you relate to your spouse? I don't even know what I'm saying next. That's was this a question or a squirrel? The question is what's the importance of sangha? So our sangha, or our community that we're creating, this Wisdom of the Sages community and these sangha group communities, it's super important because we're taking a theme, just like we're doing on Wisdom of the Sages. The theme is going through the Bhagavatam, and it's pointing out nuances of dharma or nuances of ethics or nuances of behavior to make us feel more connected, feel more authentic, who we actually are. See, we're actually spiritual beings, but sometimes I act in a material way, right? We're actually spiritual beings, but sometimes I act in a way that's more connected with my material body, my material senses, my material mind, and I feel remorseful afterwards. Have you ever done something, Kaustubha, where you feel remorseful? Like, you ever say something like, "What was I thinking?"
Yes.
I did. I did that last night, actually. We ate. I overate. We were fasting, and then we got to Cartagena. We're like, ah! We pendulum swung on that, Kaustubha. It wasn't good. But my point is, when you have a bunch of like-minded people on a regular basis, reminding you of your real identity, and not my identity based on race, gender preference, a nation, politics, the whole material world, you go on CNN, Fox, whatever you're on, it's going to remind you of what you are materially. And the Bhagavatam is here to remind us of what we are spiritually. And that's what we have in connection with each other. Politics, no. Race, no. Gender, no. Everybody's different. We're all a bunch of mutts. But what we have in common is we're spiritual beings. And that is the thread that's tying us all together.
I have a question.
Question?
So is there a difference between having sangha online and in person?
Freak out. Well, I like it in person. Just like talking to somebody with a mask on. It's a little difficult to talk with them. Talking online, sometimes hard to express, but you know what? This is what we got to do. It's 2022. If you have people, some people don't have people to associate with. They live in the middle of nowhere and they need people to associate with. Sometimes I'm traveling and I have no one to associate with. So I'll put on a YouTube lecture. That is sangha. I'll put on an audiobook. That is sangha. I'll call you up. Kaustubha, help me. I need advice. That's association. So all that is association. I'd much rather hang out with you personally than talk on the phone where we're always getting disconnected and blah, blah, blah. But just to have that association online, that's association as well. It's the information age. We were just walking down the street and noticing everybody is on their phone. Everybody's on their phone. What did we do before phones? We just had no information. We were just meandering around, lost, thinking about, I wish I had the answer to this. But now we're all on our phones. Well, check this out. 0.001% of information is spiritual information. So be like an archaeologist, dig it out, excavate the information, the real information of the soul. And then this phone, this complete time waster becomes completely effective. So yes.
So yes, what?
So I don't know. So yes, squirrel.
No, I had one thought on it. You're man spreading.
Not only am I man spreading, I'm man sweating. I'm feeling very sweetie today. We had this beautiful lady named Tatiana, and she said, she was leading the Kirtan for Kirtan Academy. She goes, "It is so hot, I'm sweating." I'm doing a Russian French accent. She's French. I don't know. I don't have a good French accent. Go.
So this is my point, is that what's the point of sangha, right? Like, what is the value of it? The value of it is that within that association, it's bringing your mind to where you want your mind to go. It's bringing your mind to a healthy, progressive, deeply spiritual place. And it's helping you hold it there. When you leave that sangha, your mind tends to begin to wander in different places. But when you're in the right sangha, it's bringing your mind in the right direction.
Sure.
So online, you can do that. You can, okay, I'm going to focus I'm just, these are people that are from Chaturama's Sage Group. That means they're getting together on Zoom once a week and they're having a spiritual discussion. And while you're involved in that spiritual discussion, then the association of those people, they've all come together with a shared purpose. Let's talk about our spiritual lives. Let's talk about Krishna. Let's talk about the development of bhakti in our hearts, improving ourselves, becoming better people, better devotees, etc. So you can do that online, and it's very potent and it's very powerful. Now, it's a very important principle in bhakti is to associate with more advanced devotees, right? This is what I would consider part of the difference between online and in person is kind of when we're online, is kind of taking that person's association, putting it in a little box, right? It's kind of just
Chaturama in a box.
Chaturama in a box. Yeah. So like if you were to live with Chaturama, you would not only hear his words on particular subjects, but you would actually begin to see him interact in life. You'd see how he wakes up, how he goes to sleep, how he associates with his wife, how he associates with his neighbors, what he does when he's at work, and how, and all of that would be really valuable too. You can't get all that online, but you can get a lot online.
Sure.
And so it is powerful and it is potent, and the knowledge that's spoken through it and the words that are spoken through it, they carry the same spiritual potency. At the same time, it's not exactly the same as being in person. So it's got its limitations, but in some sense, even what comes to it is unlimited, because even if we just had to sit in a room and we're locked in a jail cell for our entire life, in one sense, we could get everything online if we needed to, like one person speaking to you through a computer could give you everything that you really need.
Do you think do they let you go online if you're in jail?
Sometimes.
No. Kelly Skinner, the professional, on prison, says no. But Bunky says yes. Limited time online, because if you could get online, jail wouldn't be bad for a lot of people. They're online all day playing video games. If you could play video games, people love video games. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
I guess.
It's addictive. It's addictive. Yeah. Shiva Ji says it depends on the jail. She's also very jail conscious.
It depends on the particular conviction and all that.
And the conviction, like solitary confinement, probably not.
All right, that's a squirrel.
That was a squirrel. Squirrel is when the dog goes off the leash and starts chasing squirrels.
Okay, we got another one now from Chaturama Prabhu's Sage Group members.
How to set up an altar in one's home. Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah. Good question to be asked on our Facebook community too.
Okay. You want to start?
Yes. Did you know that shelter? Oh, man, I should read these lyrics. Go, you talk.
All right. So, how to set up an altar at home. There's a lot of online resources for that kind of thing. If you Google like set up Krishna altar at home, you'll get onto these different websites, and they're going to give you usually kind of a standard idea of what should be there. I can encourage people to do that. It's funny because Chaturama, he's a real Brahmana, he's into the ritual and all that. So he would be a great person to speak to about this, better than me in one sense. But let's talk a bit more generally about what you're trying to do with this altar, right? The altar is, they have this, you seem very, I don't think there's any point. You seem very anxious to share what you have here. So why don't you go ahead?
Well, it might be like a precursor to your intelligent statement.
Okay.
But on Shelter's Mantra record, we had a tongue-in-cheek song called Surrender to Your Television, because in a traditional household, there would be the center of your home is God, and therefore the center of your home would be an altar. And what do you do in the evening? You're not centered around the television. Like I grew up centered around, my whole family would come in and watch television. Now we all go in our separate rooms and watch Netflix. Like if you don't want to watch the same movie your dad's, my dad would watch the news. I would want to watch The Rookies, so we'd have to go into separate rooms, right? The Rookies. No one even knows what The Rookies is. Whatever. Do you?
Is it cop show?
Cop show. Wasn't it cop shows? But anyway, the idea is that the center of the house has shifted away from God. We're not sitting around and having kirtan. In a spiritual community, spiritual family, you're having kirtan with your family in the evening time. You read from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata in the evening. You have some morning thing. That is the center. So this was called surrender to your TV. We've replaced God with a television. Okay. Promises of paradise. To you, I sacrifice my life. I'll take you with me to my afterlife if I could. Yeah, just have faith. It will begin, filling that void that lies within. Turn off your brain and tune on in. You know you should. You're the center of my family, the Lord of our home. You're the one we turn to when we're alone. I've got faith in your words. I live what you say. Oh, yes, I accept. Will you show me the way? And you know you better pray every day to your television. Gather round and come to mass. Religiously drag your lazy ass. We just listen. We don't ask. Ain't that the truth?
A little saucy there.
A little saucy. A little saucy. Our morning meditation, our daily routine, primetime communion keeps my consciousness clean. The prophets are the stars worshipped on our screen, proselytized, hypnotized by a machine. Here's the last one. Ready? Because the communist said, was it the communist who said opiate is the opiate of the masses? He said religion is the opiate of the masses. And we say TV is the opiate of the masses. Opiate of the masses. Have you bowed down yet? Looking for reality, but static's all I get. So many problems in life. They're easy to forget. How can I repay the debt to my TV set? Wow. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Continue on, my friends.
Okay. So, yeah, what are we trying to accomplish with this altar, right? Is it that we just want to kind of have some spiritual thing going on in our house or it looks cool? It's really, again, everything in yoga is whatever we're doing externally is designed to affect us internally. It's designed to bring our mind where we want it to go. And the altar becomes a place, it becomes a focus of meditation. So, they have this phrase like, people sometimes say, is nothing sacred? Is nothing sacred?
Nothing sacred anymore.
And it's a fact as we move through life, even in our own home, depending on who we're living with and so on, it may be hard to have any kind of sacred space, a space that's like, you don't allow any of the material vibes into it. You don't let it be like you don't, just like you're saying television, television takes up the whole living room and it's blasting the whole thing out and it's sending this vibration. I want a space where I can go where that's not going to be there. I want a space that's kept sacred. And that's the idea with the altar. So there you want to keep it very clean. You want to keep it pristine so that when your mind goes there, it takes on those qualities as well. You want it focused on God. Therefore, the form of God is there. I don't recommend people that are relatively new to bhakti to get too caught up in the like establishing a deity in their home and all that. Generally, some training before that is good, but I think it's wonderful to have, like, say, a painting of Radha and Krishna there.
Sacred space.
A sacred space. And you may do a daily ritual, that may be offering of flowers. That definitely, I highly recommend offering all your food in that sacred space so that, like, every time you have a meal, you're bringing your mind to the reality, right? To the reality that everything provided here is the energy of God. By nature, I am the energy of God. This meal is the energy of God, and it's all meant for the pleasure of God. And so my meal now becomes a different thing through this ritual, and where my mind goes when I cook, where my mind goes when I eat, becomes elevated through this ritual. And so that's what the altar is for. You have that, at least one place is going to be fully sacred, and you spend some quality time in that space every day. So now exactly how to do it. You can go to, you can Google this and find, Krishna altar. You're going to have a picture of Radha and Krishna. You want their whole body to be in it. You can have a picture of the guru, and if you don't have a guru, if you're following in this lineage and reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, every commonly people will have a picture of Srila Prabhupada there. Again, full body, generally in a seated position, they have that. These are going to become objects of meditation, places where you bring your mind,
I would put a picture of Kaustubha.
No, this is one point that I want to make. You don't fill it up with all kinds of junk. Right?
No, that's not my point. I did my puja yesterday. I had to do Manasa puja because I was traveling yesterday. But part of me doing that is to, I have pictures of official gurus, like my official Shiksha guru or Diksha guru, the one who's initiated me. But there's also people that get sent to you for association that you feel lift you up. So part of my meditation was appreciate. I garland.
You don't put me on your
the altar of my mind. Okay, that's an altar too. And in my mind's altar, you were sitting there. You were sitting there.
At me?
No, I was squeaking, making various noises. And then I garlanded you with this very beautiful purple. I can't know what flower it is, but it's this purple and white flower. I garlanded you. And I think
rhododendron.
Yeah, I went through all the guys in my band because your association lifts you up.
That's nice.
You got to go through the people that lift you up, that make you feel connected to God.
Yeah.
I did Department Under. Department Under was next to you. Garlanded him.
Okay, that's fine. But I do want to make, I was going to go the other way with this. Is like, no, we were kind of raised in an Orthodox lineage.
Yeah.
And so the idea of how you establish that altar is done in an Orthodox way. And it's done there. People may even be turned off by the word Orthodox, but in other words, it's done with a formula that makes sense and that was designed by people that were very deep and understood what they're doing. And a lot of times when I go into yoga studios or something, I see more of a hodgepodge kind of thing going on. It's like, it's just kind of like, oh, I think
this is a sacred stick I found outside. This looks so beautiful.
Maybe.
A piece of coral, like Kelly Skinner found a piece of coral. I'm going to put this on my altar. I was like, no coral. I'm just making this up, Kelly. You didn't say that. She's like, I never said I'm going to worship a piece of coral, but it's true. But yeah, people want to put pretty things on their altar sometimes to decorate, but
every saint in the world, or, there is something to the idea of like, there's this one saying, when it comes to following many different spiritual paths, they all may be valid, but when you want to dig into the ground and hit water, you don't dig a million shallow, you don't dig 10 shallow holes.
Yeah.
You got to dig in one place and you got to dig deep. And so, in that altar, generally the people that we have on that altar are within that tradition, they're within that guru parampara, all the way up to God, all the way up to Krishna. And you're focused digging in that one clear path. It doesn't mean that you don't honor everyone, but when you really understand what the altar is meant for, it begins to make more sense like this. So,
I have to butt right in here and say, if you're getting into bhakti from me and Kaustubha, I highly recommend you put a picture of Lord Chaitanya on your altar. And I want to give a Lord Chaitanya appreciation class because on Patreon. Yeah. Because sweet baby Nimai. Yes. Because I tell you, Lord Chaitanya really speaks to me in a loud way. And to even understand Vedic thought, if it wasn't for Lord Chaitanya, there's too many gatekeepers at the door to even get in. It's so confusing if you've ever tried to study Hinduism or Vedic thought. Lord Chaitanya got right to the essence, and I have such great appreciation for him. And he sort of inspires me in what I do in my life. So if you have an appreciation for Wisdom of the Sages or this teachings we teach, as well as Radha and Krishna on your altar, and as long as teachers in your life, have pictures of Lord Chaitanya on your altar as well.
People want it.
People want it. Google it. Google image it.
So, in any case, I would recommend talking to Chaturama Prabhu. Someone mentioned that actually I gave a class, and I think I covered this. I think 2 classes that back in the fall of 2020. So if you're a Patreon member, you can go back, and if you just like within the what do they call those, like tag words?
Yeah,
Hashtags.
Within
hashtags.
I don't think there's hashes involved, but within the tag words in Patreon, if you go to Kaustubha Home Worship, I think it was called Home Worship. I think you'll find stuff there. So those are there. You can check those out. And Chaturama Prabhu will be really helpful with this too, for those that are in his group.
I'm going to throw out a big appreciation to our Param Guru. Param Guru means like a grandfather guru, and that's Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, who was our guru's guru. And and who's completely like empowered by Lord Chaitanya. And here we are rambling through the streets, staying at some crazy hostel that Anu picked out. Anu in Santa Marta. And what is a kilometer down the road? Govinda's vegetarian restaurant, right? There is a Krishna restaurant in San Marta, Colombia, that we had lunch at. Why? Because one person focused on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to spread this information. What is the best thing you could do for somebody? Give them direction. Isn't it? The best thing you could do someone is give them direction. What's the best thing you can do for your teenager? Give them money? No. Take away their money? No. The best thing you can do is give them direction. Whether they have money or no money, that means nothing. Whether you're driving a Ferrari or a beat up Volkswagen, the most important thing is setting up your GPS, tell them where to drive to. And so spiritual masters, spiritual teachers, great saints, Lord Chaitanya, take information and spread it all over the world for the benefit of everybody. It's the ultimate altruism you could do. And there we are. We stumbled in San Marta in this lovely, lovely little Krishna restaurant. Shout out to their delicious meal we got.
I think that's it, Raghu.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
So
There's more
why don't we-
questions on the list. We're going to get to them.
Why don't you announce again, we're not here the next 2 days, and we're back on Tuesday at 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. A bunch of people joined late in the game here. Mara's sitting on the floor. And Stephen Alacron, Nitai Lieberman, Karuna, 8 years old. Who else is here? Liam Wilson.
People can turn the cameras back on.
You turn your cameras back on because this is the time of the show where we dance around in our homes. Here comes Mara. She's going to start spotlighting everybody. Mara's the enlarger. The enlargerer. What do we call you? Enlarger? What happened to all the dancers? Now only the kids dance. Oh, Greg DeGacy's dancing. Good. Stephanie Berman, start dancing. Come on. There's. Thanks for everybody joining us on Facebook. Facebook people, if you want to do this every day or once in a while, just go to anywhere you get podcasts and look up Wisdom of the Sages. And in the same way, I'm binge watching Narco episodes every night, only for cultural and historical reasons. You can binge listen to Wisdom of the Sages.